The only thing any of us know we have is mind. Nothing else. We deduce, using our minds, that we have a body, that there's a world out there, there's a bunch of people in it, and you possibly have minds too. But we only have mind to go on. When I was doing research in neurochemistry in the 1970s, the exact opposite was assumed. Only the physical world was real, mind was an emergent property of brain. I had my doubts even then, but it was another 30 years before I took up hypnotherapy and entered a world of wonders. As an enthusiastic trainee, I invited volunteers for me to practice on. One of them was a young woman who had a habit of pulling her hair out by the roots. I was just studying the treatment of nail biting and reckoned this was much the same, so I treated the condition as a nuisance habit, and the single session was remarkably successful. As far as I know, she never pulled her hair again and went on to have a successful, happy life. It was only after the session that I read up about the condition and found it had a scary name, trichotillomania. It was classified as an obsessive-compulsive disorder, incurable, but manageable with medication. I'm glad I didn't know that before the session. Anyway, with much more practice, I came to see that habit is at the root of a great many problems, even including physical symptoms. And I developed my own protocol for tackling habits, which I call the 5 B's. Number 1, believe you can change. As Henry Ford famously observed, whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, either way, you're right. Number 2, be aware. Observe the habit in detail and make it all conscious. This exercise also reminds you that you are not the habit. You are merely experiencing it. Number 3, break the habit by interruption. There are many techniques for that. Number 4, build up healthy new habits. And number 5, importantly, big up your successes and belittle your lapses. And this is important because there will be lapses. The old nerve pathways remain very strong. But every time you avoid the habit is proof that you can and will overcome it. I have used this approach for all the obvious things, smoking, eating disorders, drinking, gambling, but I use it as part of treatment for most of the problems I encounter. Phobias and anxiety, and even travel sickness, hay fever, intestinal disorders, chronic pain. A lot of habit in all those. Another thing, unhelpful habit, can be our beliefs, and I'm going to describe some typical beliefs that are inflexible and extreme and not useful, but we all have a tendency, you'll probably recognize yourself in these. I'll use examples from exam anxiety and road rage. The first is masturbation. I must pass this exam. It shouldn't be on the road. Then there's awfulizing. If I don't pass this exam, it will be a disaster. He'll cause an accident, we'll all be killed. Then there's self or other damning. Oh, I'm such a failure. Scumbag. And a low frustration tolerance. And I can't bear it. And I can't stand it. And a realistic and healthier set of beliefs would be, I shall be very disappointed if I fail this exam, but it's not the end of the world, and of course I'll cope. Or, that driving is annoying, but we all make mistakes, no harm done. The classic treatment of phobias entails facing up to the feared situation using imagination or memory, heightened by hypnosis, and superimposing calm feelings. After all, you are at no risk of injury from a plane crash when you are just imagining it. And combining these techniques can result in permanent loss of the phobia after a single session. It's just one of the most rewarding things. I once treated, for example, a woman who had hardly been out of her house for 10 years because of her extreme phobia of wild birds. And after one session, she was able to walk to the shops. After 3 sessions, she met my parrot. Fear of flying is very common, and I've successfully treated people who have had to be taken off a plane because of the extreme panic attacks and the flight delayed and their luggage taken out of the hole. That bad. Actually, phobias are incredibly common, and we probably all have some, but mostly we manage to avoid the feared item. And the handicap, of course, comes from the avoidance, not from the fear itself. It comes from the fear of the fear. So far, everything I've described is straightforward, the sort of techniques, and I'm terribly aware of John here in the audience who knows his stuff, and I feel such a con in his presence. You will know these are the sort of techniques that a counsellor or a psychotherapist would use. The hypnosis isn't really essential, and the hypnotic trance is, we think of it as the hypnagogic state between sleeping and waking, but which some people are better at accessing than others, but I know that a lot of these techniques work even if you're a very bad subject. I know this because I am a terrible subject, and I try everything out on me. I'm so bad that many, many years ago, I attended a stage hypnotist, and I volunteered to be part of the show, and I was the only volunteer he sent away. But then when I saw what he made them do, I was really relieved. But these things work on me too. Lousy subject as I am, one of my greatest successes was on me. I was trying out my weight loss program, it's a series of recordings and exercises and things, and the effect was life-changing. I had been a yo-yo dieter for 50 years. I was never hugely overweight, but I was never comfortable around food or never comfortable with my shape, and very typical of women in my peer group, I've got to say. As a result of my program, I lost the excess weight, that's about 8 kilos, and it has stayed off effortlessly for 12 years, and I eat anything I want. I thoroughly enjoy food. So I thought, that's it. I've solved eating disorders for the world. I am going to be enormously rich. Well, I didn't quite manage that, but the program works well for some people. So far, so straightforward. Where are the wonders I promised, you may be thinking? Well, for those who can enter the hypnotic state, imagination can achieve amazing things. I usually install idiomotor responses in the client, which are unconscious movements of the fingers to signify yes or no, an answer to questions. And then we can do all sorts of things. Time travel, for instance. Regression to apparent former lives can happen, but I'm not keen. They're often violent and cause more trauma. However, going forward in time to when you've overcome all your problems, I like to do that. I'm very solution-focused. You can go home, go forward and experience what life will be like when your problems are solved. I also like to take people back, if I have to do any sort of regression, in a very detached way. So they can watch their former self on a screen and they can fast forward or rewind or pause. And that can be helpful. Or you can meet your earlier self and reassure them that they will get through their challenges. Possible future selves also seem to have independent existence. In fact, we seem to contain all manner of what I call personality fragments. People will often say that a part of them is responsible for their problem. They'll say, I hate cigarettes, but part of me makes me smoke. Under hypnosis, in their imagination, we can talk to that part. We can find out what makes them need to smoke and alter them, or indeed ask them to leave. And this can be very effective. The part may be oneself at an earlier age, or a relative, such as a disapproving parent. Disapproving parents seem to stick around long after they're dead. And again, I will talk to the part. I will convince it that it is in its best interest to stop the nagging or whatever it is they're doing, and maybe invite them to leave. And sometimes completely unrelated personality fragments emerge. And this is where I'm so grateful that Vanessa has joined us. Because I hope you don't mind me mentioning you by name. Vanessa is a remarkable person with an incredibly a vivid imagination and a very fine actor. But she suffered from absolutely appalling migraine headaches. And under hypnosis, we looked for the fragments or that could be responsible for the headaches, and we found a whole range of characters, unrelated, many of them men, who had experienced head injury of some sort. One of them had experienced a stroke, and the whole side of her face went slack when that one arrived. And I communicated with them with the ideomotor responses and managed to remove them, invite them to leave. And, well, neither she nor I could explain the phenomenon, and we know it could be of her vivid imagination, my suggestions, all that, but the therapeutic effect was undeniable. She was much better. And she'll tell us later, I hope, if she sticks around for the forum, how she has been since. But I know that they never got as bad as they had been before, even though she had long COVID, poor thing. But she also lost her extreme photosensitivity. And I don't think, she'll confirm it, that it ever came back, certainly not the way it had been. Sometimes the personality fragments are of living people, friends, relatives, colleagues, and fascinatingly, the treatment sometimes seems to affect the third party, although obviously the real person doesn't know anything about this. In these cases, both the client and the unexpected third party seem to benefit, sometimes with unexpected improvements in physical health to both parties. It's a huge subject that I can't go into in detail, but it really is extraordinary. And I have to mention the strangest and most interesting case I've experienced so far, which was with another friend who, under hypnosis, appeared to channel her late father. Her demeanor, voice, and vocabulary all changed to that of a man, Englishman, using the slang of the 1950s, and with whom I had the most interesting conversations of my life. Could all these phenomena be explained by imagination? Well, perhaps, but it means imagination is a lot more powerful than we usually credit it with, so let's give it a try. Let's do a simple exercise of imagination. There is absolutely no need to believe in any of it. In fact, I think I'll start with let's pretend. I'd like you, please, sit comfortably with your spine straight, feet on the floor, and close your eyes. And just notice what you're thinking and feeling right now, and say to yourself, stop. And you're going to take a few deep breaths, and on the slow out breaths, keeping your spine straight, drop your shoulders. Relax your face, especially your jaw, and move your attention right down to your feet, the soles of your feet, and notice that gentle pressure of the floor. Keep up the slow out breaths and keep saying stop. And this exercise reminds you that whatever you're thinking, feeling or doing at any moment is just your experience, not who you are. I usually liken it to the waves on the surface of the sea. You are the sea. Now, imagine you're breathing in golden light on every in-breath. Warm, intelligent, golden light. And imagine that it's covering the lining of your lungs with a very thin, gel-like film, which acts as a non-stick coating, keeping your airways clean and clear for gas exchange and preventing viruses, bacteria, or pollutants from getting a grip. Feel and enjoy the ease of breathing. And now imagine the golden light passing into your bloodstream and applying a non-stick coating to your blood vessels so your circulation is smooth and unimpeded, even in the finest capillaries. And that light sets your whole body glowing. If you have any health issues, direct the light to that area and imagine it renewing, repairing, regenerating. Choose any part of your body and zoom your attention right into the tissues. You will notice an enormous amount of activity. Every second, 500,000 cells die and are replaced.
Recording in progress.
Everything is in a state of flux. Chemicals continuously flow through, so your body is actually always young and can always change. Imagine that its form is maintained by fields which, like magnetism or gravity, are invisible and perhaps more like the stuff of mind. Now zoom even deeper into an individual cell, into a molecule, and into a single atom. And imagine that the atom is the size of a cathedral. You'll find the nucleus is like a grain of sand, and the electrons like specks of dust, but not even that, more like wisps of probability. Our bodies are so empty that 100 trillion neutrinos, tiny cosmic particles, pass through each of us every second without noticing we're there. But now I want you to fill all that empty space. Fill it with the golden light. Imagine it alive with possibilities and power and consciousness. And now we're going to zoom upwards and outwards in scale at enormous speed, back to our whole body and then up and away. So you can float upwards and you'll see how radiant your body is with the golden light. And among your superpowers is the ability to see minds and connections across time and space. Quantum entanglement, perhaps. You notice, for instance, this group of people and the connections between our minds. And as you zoom further out and up, you see connections with the natural world, and the past and the future. You can even visit the future. And we can just ask a question, pose a question to nobody in particular, ourselves, I suppose. What do we need to know, and what do we need to do as we enter this new year? And now return to your body, still comfortably seated, and maybe wiggle your fingers and toes a bit to remind you of where you are. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes, but bring that feeling of well-being and excitement and anticipation back with you.